All right, I think I'm live. Fabulous. Uh, I've had a little bit of internet challenge here in Italy today. And so, for anyone that is on with me live right now, can you pop in the chat if you can see me and hear me okay? No glitching. We'll wait for that and then we'll dive in to the activist. Also, let me know how the sound is. Okay, great. All right, here we are live. Know your creator type. And we are on, first, we dove into the improviser that's connected to fire element. Thank you, Kathy. The improviser, which relates to fire element, spontaneity, presence. And then we dove into the alchemist, which had to do with water element, emptiness, mystery, the magic of the unknown, and themes of faith. Now we dive into the activist, and the activist has to do with wood element in Chinese medicine, the springtime, the color green. I wore my appropriate color for you, and so much more. So let's snuggle in together for about 15 or 20 minutes. And by the way, this was part of my the activist energy. The activist energy within us is that aspect that helps us to creatively find our way around obstacles, where the improviser can improvise with the obstacles, go with the flow. The activist is actually like, what's the strategy that'll help me creatively deal with this obstacle? And so my obstacle this evening was that my room, which is right down at the end of the hall, it doesn't get the signal down there. So my creative plan is I'm set up in the hallway on a bench with a little stool, and it's possible that somebody might come down this hall to go to their room as we're talking, but that's okay. They can just hear what we're doing. So let me give you, I'm going to drop some resonances in here in your soup pot to just feel, even if you want to close your eyes and just let these words wash over you. And each one of these words carries an essence of the activist within them. So even if your brain can't make total sense of why I'm even saying that word, just feel the activation and the transmission of these words. Ready? East, wood element, springtime, growth, expansion, creativity, vision, to see, the eyes, the color green, new ideas, movement, new growth, up and out, hope, perspective. Good. So all of those words point to part of the kind of power pack that the activist contains. And remember, all of us have all of the 5 creator types within us. We just have certain ones that we're better at than others. So in this time together, we're going to go from these resonances into a little bit more detail about the activist. And we're going to talk about what the activist, how the activist looks in the world, or the activist within you looks in the world when it's off track, and what it looks like in the world within you when it's on, so that you can feel and know when you need adjustment here. So for context about the activist, In essence, the activist creator type within us is the part that helps us to come up with creative solutions, particularly to challenges that, um, at least human sphere, that feel they have a justice component, that there's a right or wrong. Like it's not right. It's not right. Segregation is not right. We can feel something in our bones. It's not right. Racism, it's not right. Does it exist? Yes, it's not right. So that part of us that feels that it's not right and then does something about it, that's our activist. So in our creative sphere, it's on a kind of mild level, it's the part that recognizes a challenge and finds creative solutions. And on a more extreme scale in relationship to justice, it's the part that senses or seeks out where there is injustice and endeavors to create creative solutions to it, alternative ways of being. And the main way that the activist does this, the big medicine with a capital M, is perspective. Wherever there is injustice, we need we need a different perspective. We need a different narrative which is connected to the different perspective, and then we have to connect the different perspective into action. So different perspective to different action. That's the genius zone of the activist in you. Do you feel that? Think about it right now. In what areas of your life do you do that? Where you feel a challenge or an injustice, something that might like kind of piss you off or irritate you, or maybe previously in the past, it might create hopelessness in you in the face of it. And when your activist comes out, you develop creative ideas that open perspective and you move into action to create change. So the obvious thing is that, activists, and there's many different ways that people can be activists in the world, by the way. Uh, Activists, as they show up in the world, they're utilizing the activist creator type, hence the name. Now, when the, let's see, do I want to go here yet? No, before I go there, let me give you the five highlights. So I've been giving you five highlights for each creator type. I really love these. And at the end, we'll do a nice summary. And maybe I'll send out a written up doc for everybody who registered for this event. So you have the PDF with all the details here. So the magic, because we go through a magic for each one, the magic for the activist, I think you'll like this one. Kathy, you might really like this one. The magic for the activist is disruption. The magic for the activist is disruption. The superpower for the activist is perspective. So we just laid down some context for that. The kryptonite for the activist is fighting. Another way to think about fighting, because you might think, well, I don't really fight anymore, but it's this particular energy dynamic of getting caught in an unproductive polarity. And we do it with ourselves all the time. Anytime you're caught between an unwanted and a relatively less unwanted, and you're just pinging back and forth between the two, and you don't really like either options, and you feel like you're in some kind of prison trapped between what feels like your only options, we need perspective. We need actually activist creativity here. But that staying trapped in an unproductive polarity, feeling like you don't want to make the wrong choice. I don't want to get it wrong. I don't want to get it wrong. I don't want to get it wrong. That's the most common unproductive polarity for the activist. And any unproductive polarity that you get stuck in can be considered fighting. That is kryptonite to the activist. Because as long as you're in that unproductive polarity, all your energy is being used up for that. And you're not a creative visionary. The activist in tune is a creative visionary. You can't be a creative visionary when you're just like, "Arr, arr, arr." It's almost like a short circuit. You can't get caught. I got caught in one of these the other day. And This is, by the way, when the oils just come in so handy. Bergamot on Shen Men. We're working with a little blue tansy to get you out of that. Because if we try to get out of those unproductive polarities from the mind, we usually don't make very good progress. Well, unless we do some kind of practice that flips the thoughts on their head, which we're going to talk about next week. So let's review. Magic is disruption. Superpower is perspective. The kryptonite is fighting. Avoid it if you can. Or when you're in it, get out of it. The theme is creative visionary or creative vision. And the hack for the activist, this is my favorite hack actually, just do it. Just do it. The activist has to have movement. It has to be taking an idea into action. You actually can't tap your genius in the activist creator type if you're not taking action on your ideas. If you're not moving forward, you can have all the creative visionary ideas in the world, but if you're not actually moving into action with them, it's just going to fall flat. So the hack is just do it. And I just put secondary one, create now. So just do it, create now. Okay, if you have any questions on this so far, please feel free to type it in the chat. Or if you're watching this after the fact, please feel free to make comments. It's so fun to be sharing this with you. Now we're going to get into what it looks like when the activist is off, see if you can identify with any of these, and then what it looks like when they're on, and then we're going to wrap up. Oh, good. I'm glad you like the idea of getting a PDF. I'll do that at the end. Okay, so when the activist, by the way, if this is also when the activist in you is off, when this creator type is off within you, you will feel angry. Now, anger is a natural emotion. I'm talking about like getting stuck in anger. Angry, frustrated, resentful, passive aggressive. Hopeless, discouraged, depressed vision, stunted growth. Conflict avoidant. Anyone? I already said stunted growth, didn't I? Aggressive growth is the other one, so it could be stunted or aggressive. How about this one? Stubborn, fixed mindset, lacking perspective, afraid to be wrong. This is usually how mine comes out if I'm off in my activist. I'm just terrified to be wrong, afraid to be wrong, afraid to take and afraid to take creative action leaps. Okay. Now, when the activist is on, get ready. When the activist is on, this is your creative visionary. In Chinese medicine texts, when they translate the virtue of wood element, it's most often translated as benevolence, which is kind of a word we don't use too much in contemporary times. One of my favorite Chinese medicine teachers for 5 elements, Thea Elijah, she talks about creative visionary benevolence in today's world as creative visionary. And so that's why I choose that word. But I also think there's a special signature to this energy or this word of benevolence. Like when my activist is on, I can be a human that transmits and offers up into the world true benevolence as a creative visionary. I like this next one. Fluidity with perspective. Fluidity with perspective. So this is the ability to like surf through various ideas, through various perspectives, through various philosophies, and to actually, as you're doing it, glean what's needed for you to come up with the most ideal creative visionary solution or creation or offering from surfing various perspectives. When the activist is on, they're fresh, they feel fresh, they sound fresh. You can actually feel it in a person when their activist energy is really healthy. They have a freshness to them. It's like springtime in them. Fresh ideas, growth, expansion, and depth. They dream big and then they act on it seamlessly. And by big, what I mean by big is it doesn't mean that it has to be some grand scale, but by big, I mean outside of the box. They're not being boxed in by what has come before or by the shoulds and shouldn'ts of culture. Our activist is meant to bust the boundaries of things, to pop our roots out of a root bound pot, to pop our sprout self out from the ground, even if the ground is hard. That's the energy of the activist. To dream big and act on it seamlessly, the acting. Commitment to the vision for its own sake. For all of us, the activist energy within us is the energy that allows us to, or helps us to have the vision and then be taking action in alignment with that vision. And that's a very particular flavor of commitment that I assign with the activist. There's another flavor of commitment that has to do with trust that we connect with the improviser, fire. Powerful, creative manifester, strong and direct, unafraid of conflict and unafraid of anger. Unafraid of conflict and unafraid of anger. So, for you right now, of all those things that I said, where what are your go-tos for when you're off that you notice in your experience? Another way of saying that is, what are your tells? How do you know when you're off with your activist energy based on what I shared? And where are you particularly on? Like, what's more easeful for you when you're on with your activist energy? Okay, good. That was wonderful. So pay attention this week to your beloved growth of your activist energy. You can kind of treat it like a new plant that's growing, or the plant that's already so luscious that you're going to give extra nutrients to this week. Notice how you flow with your activist energy, where you may tone it down in a way that's not helpful for you because you're afraid of conflict or anger, for example, or where you can easily crank it up. Like, what activities help you to crank it up? Going for a walk, being around plants, brainstorming with another person, etc. And then next week, we're going to go into specifically into what the activist needs to thrive. And these are really powerful. So I have 4 sections I'll be sharing with you: the permissions that activists need to thrive, the tools that activists need to thrive, and that'll include the essential oils, the actions that activists and activist creator energy needs to thrive, and what to avoid. All right. So, such a pleasure to be with you. If you enjoy this and you think of others that might enjoy it, please do share. You can actually just click, I think, once I post the video, and share it wherever, invite people to this. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, from my heart to yours, big love.